I'm Bambi Francisco with this segment of Lessons Learned focused on MBA entrepreneurs, and I'm speaking with Pete Schlossberg. He founded Pete's Brewing Company back in 1986. Pete's Brewing went public in 95 and then was sold to Gambrinus for $70 million. Pete, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure.
Now, you went to Columbia's Business School. You graduated in 1974. Did you need an MBA to be an entrepreneur?
Well, back then, really for more than a decade, I had no interest in being an entrepreneur. So I didn't know what an entrepreneur needs, or I just went on the corporate side, stayed on the corporate side, enjoyed the corporate life. And then it took a friend of mine to literally pull me, kicking and screaming, to think about starting a company. And that was a great experience.
Mm-hmm. So did you really, so looking back now, I know schools have changed, there's a lot of entrepreneur programs, but you know, if somebody went up to you, a friend came up to you and said, look, I want to start a company, I know you went to Columbia Business School, you know, should I go? Can I learn the entrepreneur skills there?
You'd have to ask a recent grad, graduating 30 years ago or more.
Okay.
I don't know what the curriculums are, but I will say from the perspective of being invited to speak at MBA programs, it's great that places like Stanford, I've spoken at Berkeley, Stanford, Columbia, Dartmouth, even local schools here, but it's nice that they bring real-world entrepreneurs in to talk to the students, to give more of a, rather than a theoretical view of the world, but real-life experiences.
Well, I think it's the access then, at least that's what they're doing now, which is what you said, that was your complaint about your business school experience, was they weren't bringing the real world in. So tell us about how you became an entrepreneur. I love the story about how you were trying to make wine, and you didn't even drink, or
no,
you never drank.
I love to thank my wife. She drove me to drink, and I thank her every day. Thank you, Amy. I didn't drink. When I went to school in New York, the drinking age back in the old days was 18. I didn't drink in undergrad and graduate school. It wasn't until I met my wife and she slowly got me to drink wine. My first corporate job out of the MBA program was with Xerox in upstate New York. And it turns out there are a lot of really nice boutique wineries in the Finger Lakes area of upstate New York. So I started developing my palate for wine. And one of the epiphany moments was having dinner at a friend's house. And he poured a wine that was my favorite wine. I said, "This is great. Who made it?" And he smiled and he said, "He did." He said, "Come on, how do you make wine?" He said, "Come to my cellar," and he showed me. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to make wine? So we moved to California in '79, got equipment in grapes and made a Cabernet in 1979, and then I realized it's going to take up to 5 years for it to mature. I don't want to wait. I want instant satisfaction, gratification. So I went back to the store and they said, you can make white wine in a year or beer in a month. And I thought, I hate beer, but it'd be fun to experiment and try making a homebrew. And the guy said, if you've never had a homebrew, you haven't had real beer. Even if you hate beer, I guarantee you'll like homebrew. Try it. I tried it and fell in love with beer.
And that's how it started. It started as a hobby. And eventually you ended up going public in 95.
But more important, I didn't start the company to make beer.
Right. Right. You started the company to make wine.
No.
Oh, no, wait, you didn't start,
no,
the company.
That was the path that we took, a completely different path. It wasn't as though I was a beer bigot and I said, I want to start my own business, make a beer company. No. My friend who wanted me to start a company with him, I kept telling him no, and I said, the only way I'd even consider it is let's sit down and talk about the goals of the company, not the product.
Oh, interesting. That's right.
And unless that is so compelling to me, why would I want to give up my corporate job to do a startup? And we sat down, and it was great. I'm Jewish, he's not. We met at a deli in Mountain View, California, called The Jew and the Gentile. So it was great. It was great for a Jew and a Gentile to meet and talk about this. But we came up with 3 key, call them core values, goals, whatever you want to call it, for the company. And they were, number 1, make a world-class gold medal winning product or service, because we didn't know if it was going to be a product or service. Number 2, let's get on the ground floor of a new industry or a new segment of an industry, get in early, and hopefully there'll be a wave. We can ride the wave up and become successful that way. And 3rd, treat the product with reverence, but everything else with irreverence. If we're going to put the time into it, let's have a huge fun factor. Let's make that a core value. And after we came up with those 3, I thought, if we can make a gold medal winning product in a nascent industry and have fun doing it, let's give it a shot. So beer wasn't even part of the equation up until we got through that
You had
criteria.
to, and that's a really great point, that you have to define the environment you want to be in first.
Right.
Before you jump into it. I like that. But give us a lesson that you've learned as an entrepreneur. I mean, it's not very easy. When I asked you what's the most difficult thing as an entrepreneur, you said that the highs are higher, the lows are lower. It happens and this happens every day.
There's no one, I mean, there's so many things that can churn your stomach. Fundraising, I mean, the path we took was not to try to raise, we knew it would be a couple million ultimately to get the company going. We knew we couldn't raise a couple million. So we decided, let's take a counter approach and say, let's break it up into deliverable chunks and prove the concept along the way so we can hopefully get more investors interested in investing in us. So our first step was to just raise 20 grand, make some product, develop a label, get all the basics done and test it. And we did that, then we did another round of 50 grand, and ultimately we did 1.5 million over 5 years. But once you're in that fundraising mode for 5 years, it's half your life is fundraising.
So you would do it differently.
If somebody would write a check for 2 million or 3 million, I would do it up front. But for these types of consumer goods, it's literally impossible to get any type of venture funding.
But were you able to keep more of the company because you didn't get venture-backed financing?
Well, we made another decision. We wanted to be in the top 3 as quickly as possible so we would have potential liquidity options. And we figured the best way to get big quicker is to hire great people. So we spread the wealth among investors, we spread the wealth amongst employees, and we got to be number 2 in our segment very quickly.
Lasting advice one piece of advice to an entrepreneur, what would that be?
Hire great people. You can't do it yourself. Don't assume you can do it yourself. Hire great people, let them run with it, make them feel good, and everybody will win.
That's what they say. Surround yourself with people smarter than you are. Okay, well, you've done a pretty good job being an entrepreneur, Pete. MBA or not.
I'll drink to that.
I've been speaking with Pete Schlossberg, founder of Pete's Brewing Company. I'm Bambi Francisco.